Assalamu alaikum everyone, how are you guys doing? In this video I want to talk to you guys about one of the strongest questions and arguments posed to those who deny the existence of a God in the Quran. And in this video I want to discuss that question that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala poses to those who deny the existence of God, and see how atheists are not able to properly answer this question. And then I will explain to you guys the Quranic answer to this question. Obviously, when you guys hear this question, you guys will know the answer to it. However, I want to go into why this question can only be answered with the belief in a God. So, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's begin. The Quranic verse that is posed to the atheist, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges and asks the atheist for an answer, is as follows: Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in am humul khaliqun? Were they created out of nothing, or were they themselves the creator of themselves? This is a very interesting question. Many of you guys might have heard this question phrased in a different way before. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why do we even exist? How does a universe exist? How is it that we are actually living and here, and there's a universe, and there's the skies and the sun and all that stuff? Why is there something rather than nothing? However, what's interesting with the Quranic verse, a Quranic challenge to the atheist, is that Allah takes it even like one step further. He's providing the two ways that an atheist, a true hardcore naturalist, an atheist, can provide. Let's take a look at these two responses that an atheist can give. And generally speaking, there's no other way an atheist can give an answer to this question: why is there something rather than nothing? If they want to try to reach to a conclusive, oh yeah, this is why there's something rather than nothing, if they want to deny the existence of a God, a necessary being, then, well, they're stuck either giving one of these two, that they came from nothing, or that we came from something. And we'll go deep into each of these right now. Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in? Were you guys created out of nothing? This is the first line of response that an atheist might give, that the universe was created out of nothing. In fact, there's a very famous book by Lawrence Krauss, who actually did a debate with Hamza Tzortis. And he wrote this book called A Universe from Nothing. Very interesting, right? A universe from nothing. Our existence from nothing. Before getting into that book, let's just delve deep into this question. Can somethingness come from nothingness? In order to best understand this, we need to understand a principle. And this principle is something bereft of a quality cannot produce it. Something that does not have a quality of something cannot produce said quality. To illustrate an example for you guys, let's look at my iPhone. This is an iPhone 13. And let's say right now I have 19%, sadly. Now let's say I want to charge this phone, okay? I want to charge this phone, and this is not one of those phones that can, charge like the Samsung. Those are cool, but just for this purpose, this is an iPhone 13. This cannot charge. Now let's say I want to charge this phone. And let's say I bring in another iPhone 13 and I stack it together. Will I be able to charge the phone? Well, let's say I bring in two iPhone 13s. Let's say 15 iPhone 13s. Let's say 1,000 iPhone 13s. And I'm just stacking those things up and taking them apart to charge this phone. And I'm only using the components of the iPhones. Will I ever be able to charge this iPhone? Well, the answer to that question is no. It's impossible. Why? Because iPhone 13 does not have the quality of charging. I would need a charger, or a phone that can charge, or a charging pad, or whatever the case may be. I need something that has the quality to charge. Now let's go back to this question. Are we created from nothing? Did we come from nothing? Or whatever, however you want to phrase it. Well, what is nothing? This is a very philosophical question. There's actually much literature on it. But nothing is the absence of something. There are many people who actually say nothingness does not exist. We can't claim that, we can't point, for instance, to something and say, that's nothing. You can only provide saying something is nothing or there's nothing there due to its relation to something. In this weird way, nothing is the absence of something. For instance, if I go inside a room and then I enter out of that room and I close the door and somebody asks me, who's in that room? And I say, nothing. Do you imagine a room filled with iPhones, filled with, computers and like pens and paper? No, you imagine a room, just a four-sided room maybe, but nothing inside of it. And because nothingness is the absence of something, nothingness does not have the quality of something. It cannot produce something. This is very interesting. Let's take the best example, the number 0. If we were to do 1 plus 1, we would have 2, then 2 plus 2, 4, then 4 plus 4, 8, whatever the case may be. We do multiplication, we'll get a number. If we do 0 plus 0, what do we get? 0. If we do 0 plus 0 plus 0, what do we get? 0. If we get 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, add infinity, like just infinity, what do we get? 0. Why is this important? Because if we claim, or an atheist claims, which many don't, but I'll get back to that Lawrence Krauss book in a bit. If an atheist claims this universe is from nothing, how can that be if nothingness is bereft of the quality of somethingness? It's the exact same thing of saying we're going to add a bunch of zeros and we'll eventually, inshallah, get to 1. But 0 is not 1. 0 does not have the quality of 1 or any number. It is 0. The only way nothingness, that there's nothing, can have something is if something else comes along with it. So for instance, if this room is empty, there is nothing whatsoever in this room, the only way we can add something to this room is with something that has a quality of somethingness. For instance, I come in a room that's empty and I put a phone on there. Now the room has, something, but it didn't come from the nothingness. Because once again, if there is nothing, it cannot produce something. When we go back to that book I mentioned by Lawrence Krauss, The Universe from Nothing, it's a very interesting title of a book. He is making this claim, the scientist, he is making this claim that this universe came from nothing. I guess it's done. I guess it's over. This entire video was worthless. A scientist wrote a book, published a book saying this universe from oh, wait a minute. This nothingness is actually something. So it's not nothing. Just so everyone knows, nothing in science is still something. They just call it nothing for a number of reasons. However, Lawrence Krauss literally defines his nothingness in his book with something in it. So his book should actually be titled A Universe from Something. So once again, not many atheists uphold this line of reasoning or try wiggling it around like Lawrence Krauss, but something cannot come from nothing because nothingness does not have the quality of somethingness. Something bereft of a quality cannot produce it. Now let's move on to the second portion of this ayah. Am humul khaliqun. Were they themselves the creator of themselves? This is more of an interesting line of reasonings that atheists do tend to take. Now, this line of reasoning can be summed up as an infinite regress, i.e. that the universe has always existed. The universe has always been around, ever expanding, or that these atoms and this vacuum and particles have always been around. And thus, to an infinite set, because the universe has always been around, there's always been an infinite set of universe, there was always something in this universe. This is way more believable than a universe from nothing. However, this still poses problems for the atheist, for the atheistic belief of there being no God, and does not properly answer this question. Why is there something rather than nothing? And let me explain why. So let's give the atheist, even though there are many philosophers, there are many theologians, there's, Ghazali, Aristotle, and many others who pose questions on can there actually be an infinite in this universe. We're not talking about like infinite numbers. Can there actually be an infinity in the actual real world? That's a heavily debated thing. And for instance, however, I do not want to go against this. The reason why is because I know many atheists are going to write down there, oh, but this could be an infant because there's one professor's guy said there could be. I don't want to debate that. However, it still falls into an issue. And the issue that this falls into is this, that the universe is made up of contingent parts. So what is something that is contingent? I think the best way to explain this is going through Arabic definition, how the Islamic theologians, Islamic philosophers, like, the theologian Ibn Taymiyyah, use the word contingency in the Arabic language. And contingency in the Arabic language is a mumkinat, a mumkin. The word mumkin is it could be, or it is possible. For instance, if somebody were to ask me, hey, is the exam going to be easy or hard? I could say, well, mumkin, like it could be hard or it could be easy. There's a possibility to it being one way or the other. And that's the best way I think we can explain this. What does contingency mean? A contingent being, a contingent thing is something that could fail to exist. Essentially, there's no logical contradiction for it not existing, for it being in a different way, for it being like, let's say, a different color, or it having more or less on it. For instance, let's go back to the exam question. If someone were to say, do you think the exam's going to be hard? And I could say, mumkin. It could be hard, but there's no logical contradiction that it's easy. Or let's say, for instance, there's a teacher who gives pop quizzes, right? At random days, no, he's not giving out on a specific day, just saying, whenever I come in my mind, I'm going to give you guys a quiz, right? Let's say I'm with my friend in the dorm room, and he says to me, hey, do you really think there's going to be a quiz tomorrow? And I give him the answer of, maybe, mumkin. There's no logical contradiction if, in fact, tomorrow there is a quiz. But there's also no logical contradiction that if, in fact, there is no quiz tomorrow. You get the point I'm getting there? Something that is mumkin could be another thing, could fail to exist, could have something else to it. For instance, let's look at my iPhone. I like using my iPhone for this video, apparently. This is an iPhone 13 Pro Max. A little bit old, but that's okay. Let's say, for instance, it is a contingent thing. How do we know this? Well, it could be the case, it's not a black iPhone, that it's a red iPhone. Do they have red iPhones? Well, yes, they do, let's say. Okay, it could be the case it's a red iPhone. It could be the case that it has a different case. It could be the case that, iPhones never existed. Is there a logical contradiction that iPhones never exist? Is it something that it just can never happen that iPhones don't exist? No, we can imagine there's a world with a Samsung or something else taking the iPhone, or me at least not having an iPhone, not showing you guys an iPhone. I could have showed you guys a Samsung phone. Another way to think of contingents, if that thing is dependent on something else for its existence. For instance, let's go back to the iPhone. This iPhone is dependent on Tim Cook because Steve Jobs left. Is dependent on the factory workers that made it. It's dependent on Apple having the store. All that stuff is all dependent, but also dependent on, those are just cause-based, like whatever caused this to come. It's also dependent on, let's say, a charger. This iPhone will not work if there's no charge, right? For this iPhone to work, I have 24%. If for this iPhone to work, there needs to be a charge in it. There needs to be a charger to charge it. So it's dependent on the charger for it to also work. Now, why all of this setup? Why am I explaining this? Well, let's look at the universe. Everything in this universe is a mumkinat, something that is contingent. Everything that is contingent needs an explanation for its existence. Now let's look at this iPhone. Again, I'm using this iPhone so much throughout this video, but I really want to get the point across. If you were just to see this iPhone in the middle of the street, in, the middle of the room, just randomly, due to it being contingent, due to it being dependent, due to it failing to exist, or due to it having the possibility to not exist, there's a reason for it existing. There's a reason for it being there. There's a reason for it that if you were to pick it up, it's with charge, let's say. There is an explanation outside of it, right? There must be an explanation outside of contingent mumkinat things to explain its existence. Everything contingent has an explanation outside of it to explain its existence. I think we're all clear on that. We're not going to be like some crazy guy saying, no, I think that iPhone just so happened to come out of existence randomly. No, everything has an explanation for its existence in this universe. So all this build-up, all this explanation, what is it leading to? The thing that it's leading to is that if the atheist claims the universe has always existed, an infinite regress, it's never just popped into existence, there comes a problem. And the problem lies in that if the universe is made up of contingent parts, then the universe itself is contingent. And if the universe is contingent, it therefore needs an explanation for its existence. And if the universe needs an explanation for its existence, there needs to be something else outside of the universe to explain its existence. And that, my friends, lies the problem with the second wave of response an atheist can give. Am humul khaliqun, were they themselves the creator of themselves? Because if everything in this universe is dependent on something else for its explanation, could fail to exist, and the universe is made up of all of this stuff, then the universe itself needs an explanation outside of itself to explain it. So the atheists, even with this second response, which is slightly more probable, I'll give it to that, still leaves the atheist with the problem. The universe is made up of these contingent parts. Therefore, the universe is contingent. So there needs to be an explanation for it outside of itself. Once again, if we were to see a random iPhone or 10 iPhones or an infinite number of iPhones in a room, the iPhones itself do not explain itself's existence. There needs to be something else outside of the iPhone to explain why that iPhone exists, to explain why that iPhone is there, to explain why all those infinite number of iPhones have batteries. So the same thing is for the universe. It needs to be something that explains the universe, because the universe now is contingent and dependent. Even if it's an infinite, even if it's existed forever, let's say, there still needs to be something that explains the universe. And this thing that it can explain everything, that can explain, that is not dependent, not contingent, that atheists will agree on this term, is something called a necessary existent, a wajib al-wujud. Something wajib. In the Arabic language, necessary is wajib. Something that is wajib, that must exist. Something that is not dependent. Something that's not contingent. Something that does not need something else outside of itself to explain itself. That is what the universe needs in order to explain why there is something rather than nothing. Some of the atheists are probably typing in on the comment section, making replies, or just thinking to themselves, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Obviously, we're making the claim, the atheist says, that the universe is the necessary thing. The checkmate theist, that's what the atheist is saying. The universe is necessary, i.e., the universe doesn't need something else to explain it. The universe doesn't need an outside thing. The universe is independent. The universe must exist. And it doesn't need anything else for its outside explanation of it. That is what many atheists say. They say that because we're claiming that the universe has always existed, we're making the claim and the argument that it is the universe that is necessary. That it is the universe that does not need, nor is it dependent on something outside of it to explain it. Because the universe is the thing that explains everything. The universe is the independent thing that's not dependent, and it helps to explain how everything inside the universe is dependent. However, this claim is 100% a contradiction. Going back to the rule I gave you guys, everything bereft of equality cannot produce it. Now let's say my iPhone, right, is black. If my iPhone is black, can we reasonably say that every part of my iPhone that makes up this black iPhone is red? Or it's white? The answer to that question is no. Everyone will disagree with me on that. How can the parts that make up the black iPhone be different than the iPhone itself? That's a contradiction. The entire iPhone, imagine if we have a black wall, a black screen, right? We have an entire black screen. And let's say somebody did this by just painting dots. Dots everywhere, right? Could we say that those dots that make up the black wall are red, are green? Of course not, because in this context, the parts is what makes up the whole. And we see this all the time. If we see a big brick red wall, obviously the parts that make up that wall are not brown wood. They have to be the substance that the entire wall is, red and brick, right? So as we can see, the parts that make up something need to go in line with how the whole actually looks. Now, all of this is leading to my slam dunk on the objection that the atheists might give to us. And that is, if every part in the universe, every part of it, is contingent, dependent, which personally, I haven't even heard of an atheist go against this. Every atheist philosopher that I've read, I've looked up, like actual guys in academia, will agree with this notion. If everything in this universe is contingent, is dependent, then how is the whole of the universe somehow necessary, somehow different? How is that possible, atheists? If you guys claim this, that the necessary thing is the universe or the multiverse, but the parts that make up the universe are contingent, it is the equivalent of stating that the black iPhone is made up of only red parts. A total contradiction. The atheists might once again, the last-ditch effort, might object to this. The atheists might claim, you're getting it wrong. This is called the fallacy of composition, that you're messing up the parts to whole relation. This might say, for instance, like Bertrand Russell famously said, the parts of an elephant are small, but the elephant is big. So the atheists might say, you're just messing it up. So what if the parts are dependent? It does not contradict that the whole is necessary, the atheist might say. However, that is still wrong. There is no fallacy of composition, no parts to whole relation that I'm not understanding. Everything that I said makes sense. And I'm going to explain that to you right now, prior to going into the final section of this video, the Islamic response to the question, why is there something rather than nothing? The answer to this objection that the atheist might throw at us is this. Let's say we have a room with a baby. That child, that baby, is dependent on milk, air, maybe water. It's dependent on many things for it to survive. Let's say we had 2 babies. Those 2 babies will need more milk, more water, and more air to survive. Let's say in that room we had 10 babies. Every time, if we had 10 babies, there would need to be more milk, more water, and more air for all those 10 babies to survive. Dependent things, if you were to add them, only increases the set in its dependency. If we have a set of babies, let's say, in a room, and we had more babies in that set, then that set is more dependent on something else for its existence. So if the universe is infinite, everything in the universe is infinite, has always survived. If you add dependency to dependency, the set only becomes more dependent. Such as a room, when you add more babies, there's more dependency in that set of babies. The universe, an infinite number of dependent stuff in it, has even more of a reason why the universe is dependent on something for its existence, for it to be explained. Basically a checkmate defeater for the atheists who were to claim this. Now we come into the Islamic answer to this question, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were they created from nothing, or were they themselves the creator of themselves? And phrased in a different way, why is there something rather than nothing? The Islamic answer is very simple. In one of the shortest surahs in the Quran, in one of the surahs that almost everyone has memorized as a Muslim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Say Allah is one. Allahu samad, eternal. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Neither begets nor is he begotten. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Nor is there to him any equivalent. What does it sound like? Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Allah is one. He is the independent. He is the necessary being. Allahu samad. Allah is eternal. He doesn't depend on anything for his existence. He's always been here. He is independent. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He neither begets nor is he begotten. Nothing caused Allah. Allah has always been here. He is a necessary being. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Nor is there to him any equivalent. As you guys have been seeing with the atheistic response, there's something missing. There needs to be an explanation. There needs to be something that's not contingent, not dependent. There needs to be something that's independent. There needs to be something that's necessary, must have been here, that can explain why the universe is here. If the universe is dependent, if we just prove that the universe is dependent, it's dependent on something for its existence, for its explanation. And the Quran gives us that answer. Allah is one. He is one. He is all eternal. He has been here forever. He is not dependent on anything for its existence, and there's nothing like him. Everything in this universe is dependent, except Allah. Allah is the one, the eternal. Allah is the necessary one. Islamic answer to this question has no contradictions. What is a contradiction what is a contradiction in a necessary being outside of this universe that it can explain this universe, that's independent, that's always been here? What's the contradiction? There is no contradiction. What is a contradiction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the one that explains everything in this universe, being the necessary being, being independent? There's nothing. Out of all the answers that we've seen, this one has no contradictions. To conclude this video, guys, all the atheistic response of why there is something rather than nothing fails. The Quran, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were you created from nothing, or were you yourselves the creator of yourselves? Not in a form of, oh, this is probable, but now to show you guys kind of like the stupidity in those answers, and seeing the contradictions in those answers, seeing the falsehood in those answers, seeing the complex nature that leads to contradictions in those answers. The simple answer of Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad cannot be beaten. It is simple, has explanatory prowess, its strength in its explanatory means, fits with all what everyone talks about philosophy, and most importantly, there's no contradictions. I urge any atheist or anyone to really consider this and see how that atheists cannot properly answer this question posed by the Quran, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. And the Quranic answer, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, is the best answer there can be. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and Assalamu alaikum.